Okay, so I will return your midterm in the break and you can see, and if you have any problem, just you have 7 days to come back. So if you think there is a problem, just let me know, okay? For the last question, I never gave anyone marks unless it was a right answer, okay? So please don't ask me to give me partial marks for the last question. Okay, so today we are going to talk about graphical user interfaces, just like this, just like you are seeing it here, okay? How you can create that in Java. And if I click something like this, how it generates a new slide. Obviously, we are not going to see the PowerPoint, but how an event is created when you click on something and a function behind it runs, okay? So we are going to see that. And based on this, based on today's lecture, you are going to do your project. Again, if you have not sent me your groups, please send me as soon as possible, because from today, I'm going to upload the project, and uh, the date to submit is 6 August. That will be, I think, our last class. So I will just explain a little bit about it. So the project is not difficult. It's something like login, handling CSV files, Excel files, storing data in the file, getting data in the from the file, and checking something like if the data matches or not, just like login or register system. But the main thing is on 6 August, I'm going to call everyone, call every group, and I'm going to ask some questions regarding the code, okay? Because I know you can get it done using Chat GPT. That would be like possible. But if I ask you something and if you cannot answer, or if I ask you to change something in the code and you cannot do it, then please don't expect me to give you even some partial marks, okay? So the whole idea is you should understand each and everything in the code. Maybe it's okay, it's possible that sometimes you are confused and you cannot code live, but you should know where you need to change the code, okay? So for that, you need to understand the code. That's one thing. And another thing is the 6th August is the last date. Maybe I can extend a little bit, because from 13 it's your final exam. So yeah, I would say we need to wind it up by 6th. And I think 1 month is more than enough for that. So today we are going to see how we can create some shapes on graphical user interface, how we can create buttons, how we can create some forms, and how we can interact with the CSV files. Okay, so today we are going to see that. And all the things we are going to see today, they are going to be used in your project, okay? And maybe at the end, I will show you how your project will look like, okay? Because I have the code with me. So I will show you how it works and how it looks like. So the graphical application, the main so basically whatever you have coded till now, you have used the Eclipse IDE and you are writing the code and you are just running it and you are seeing the output here, okay, like this. But we are going to see the code where you can like create a frame and do something with the frame, either print something, either put a button, put some text box, and how those buttons or those text box, how you handle the data from those text box or those buttons, okay? So there are two main components of graphical applications. The first is a frame, which I showed you just now, and a component for the drawing. So basically you have a frame. For example, you see this whole PowerPoint is a frame, and all these home, insert, draw, transitions, they're all components. So we define each component separately and put that component on the frame, and we assign some functionality. For example, if I click on insert and if I click on some shape, so I can draw some shape here, right? So that's a functionality. So basically, this is a whole frame and these are the components, these are the functions. And if I click on something like this, there is a function behind the scene that is run, and either it prints some output or it allows you to do something or create a new or open a new frame. So yeah, so there are two main components: frame, which is this, again, a frame, which is something like this. Now it's an empty frame, there is nothing. Okay. And then we have a component, and we are going to see what type of components we can use. So let's talk about frame a bit. So this is example one. So for the frame, you have to import this library, javax.swing.jframe. So, okay, so for the project, okay, maybe it's possible that you do it with ChatGPT and you don't know, like, but you have to do your project with JFrame. You don't need to use any XML or anything. Okay, you can do things by yourself again. So, but you need to use JFrame. Okay, so please keep in mind that if you don't do the project with JFrame, I'm not going to give you any marks. Okay, so the first thing is, again, everything is implemented in Java, so you just have to import this JFrame. Okay, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. So this JFrame basically allows you to create frames. So first of all, to create frame, that's very simple. JFrame frame is equals to new JFrame. Okay, and then you set the size of JFrame. Okay, so right now it's 900 into 400, and if I run this, so basically 900 pixel is it the width and 400 is the height, right? So if I change it to like 400 by 400, you now see it's a square. So that's how you adjust the length and width of JFrame. Again, frame dot set title. You can set the title of the frame, an empty frame. You can see it at the top. So that's where you see the name of the application. Um, and you can also define set default close operation. So you are defining a close operation. So if you click on the close button, what happens? It just closes. Okay, and all these things you again don't have to remember all these things. These are very basic, like, and frame dot set visible true. You are just saying that the frame, when we run the code, you should see a frame. That's it. There is nothing difficult in that. So at this point, we can also implement some more functions. You can see frame dot add component. We have like a bunch of functions which we can use. We can get state, get size, get shape, but all these functions you don't have to memorize or you don't have to use. Okay, we are going to see some main functions which we are going to see today. So at this point, do you have any confusion about what a frame is and how you manage the frame? So at this point, frame is just something you see on the screen. Okay, you run the code, you create a frame here, create a frame, and frame is just like a graphical user interface. So basically, graphical means that now you are seeing it on the screen, and user interface, basically this is user interface. And you have used it a lot in your life. So that is frame. Okay. So now I told you the second thing is component. So once you have drawn a frame, how you put a component on a frame. Okay. Because without component, frame is nothing. So for the frame, we use JFrame class. For the component, we use JComponent class. Again, you don't have to remember anything. Okay, it's always there. And there are two classes, graphics and graphics 2D. So the graphics class normally store the graphic state such as color, and graph 2D class has methods to draw the shape. So let's see in the code. I think it's example 2. Yeah, and I will just like go through. So whenever we want to draw a shape, we always have an origin 0, 0. So if we are giving 5, 10, 25, 40, again, we are just giving the exact location where you need to draw this thing on the frame, because if you see the frame in example 1, so now we have this whole place to draw things, right? So we need to, if we want to draw something here, we need to give the location or coordinates here. If we want to draw something here, we need to give coordinates here. So that's how, and this is 0 0. So this point on the extreme left, if you see on the upper left, this point is 0 0, and you have to start it from here. Maybe in the center it's 200 into 200, because the whole length is 400 by 400. Again, if I ask you to do something, you don't have to do these things. Like, you can always make it beautiful, but I don't want it. So if, even if your GUI doesn't look good, but it works, okay, so I think that's fine. So your GUI, your frame always start with 0 0, and again you can always define a position. And then we have a component. So let's go and see the component, how it works. By the way, this lecture is not going to come in your exam, okay? Midterm or final. This is just for the project. So don't bring anything in your exam like this. Okay, so so let's go back again. So we imported java.swing.everything. First we imported JFrame, but now we are importing everything. And we have this java.awt, and we are bringing everything. So again, you can import libraries and you have to use it. So the whole idea is you start from here. First of all, you create a JFrame, and you are just creating a new constructor, and then you are setting the default close operation exit, and you are setting the size of frame as 400. And here you are creating a rectangular component. So what is rectangular component? This is the rectangular component class. So okay, so whenever you want to create a J component class, whenever you want to create a J component class, you have to create a new class and extend the J component. Okay. So basically J component is your parent class, and every class which you create by extending J component is the child class. And in order to create something, there is a function paint component which you have to override. And that's fixed. I mean, you have to remember this thing. Okay. Um, there is no other way around. You are not doing anything by yourself. The function is already there. You just need to override it. Okay. And you need to give your own implementation. So how you give your own implementation? You, let's say you define x50, y50. Let's say the width is 100, height is 50. So there is this rectangle class which allows you to create a rectangle using x, y, width, and height. And you can set the color using the color class. And there you have a graphics 2D object which keeps track of what is the specification of J component. Here the J component is a rectangle. So in simple words, what you are doing is you are creating a rectangle and storing all this information in this graphics 2D component. Again, what is graphics 2D? It is just a way to store the J component specification. You can create an ellipse, you can create a circle and store it in graphics 2D. You can create a line and store it in graphics 2D. Okay. So let's forget what's that. Just think that you are creating a rectangle using X, Y, width, and height. Okay. And you are creating a color. And what you are doing is simply you are defining a graphics 2D object, and you are setting the color to Magneta, which you have defined here. And you are filling the graphic with rectangle. Maybe if it's a square, you are going to do it with square. Maybe it's a circle, you are going to do it with a circle. And finally, you are using G2D.draw rectangle. So now what you are doing here is you are creating a rectangular component. So now it goes to this class. It defines a graphics 2D object. Consider it as a table which keeps track of your images, dimension, or the color. Okay. So what it does is it first create a rectangle, it defines a color, it assign the color to G2D, it assigns the shape to G2D, and finally G2D is going to draw the rectangle. And what you are doing is you are simply adding this rectangular component in the frame. And finally, you are setting the frame to true. So let's run this and see what's happening. So let's go here step by step. So first of all, you created JFrame. Okay, so a JFrame was created and this rectangle example is the title. Then you are just setting the default close operation. You are setting the size, which is 400 by 400. Now here's the main thing. For the component, you created rectangular component class, which extended J component. Okay. Um, Again, that's how you do it. And you have to override this paint component. Okay. So, so when you add something on the frame, the function that runs is paint component. Okay. So the paint component function runs, it's going to create a G2D object. It's going to create a rectangle. It's going to define a color. And in this G2D object, it is going to set the color. It is going to fill the rectangle. And finally, it is going to draw the rectangle. So first, you created a rectangle. And then you used a graphics 2D object to set the color, to fill the rectangle, and to fill the rectangle with the selected color, and finally to draw the border of the rectangle. So in this line, what it does, it has created a rectangle, filled it with the magenta color, and finally it has drawn this rectangle on this frame. Okay. Any question from here? No question? Okay. Again, these things are not difficult. Once you do it, you will see they are really simple. You don't have to like remember anything. I mean, you can just go to ChatGPT and you can ask, I want to draw a rectangle, and it's going to give you this thing. You just need to understand that in order to draw something on the J frame, there is this function paint component. Okay. In order to put a component on the J frame, you need to override this paint component function. And you are going to use this graphics 2D. Basically, this graphics 2D class, it is designed to operate on JFrame. Okay. Yeah. This J component class, yeah, it is already defined. Okay. So we are actually, you see, Java x.swing.j component, just like JFrame. This class is also defined, Java x.swing.j component. You just import it and just extend it. So uh, I'm not sure how I can go inside this class, but yeah, but this class is already defined in Java, okay, in the package, and you just import it just like you to generate a random number, you import random class, okay? Similarly, to work with the frame, you import the J frame and J component classes, and you simply extend it, okay? And this J component actually allows us to draw something on the J frame, but to draw something which we want to draw, we need to first define it inside the paint component. And this paint component will basically be run here when you add it in the frame. And then the frame is going to add this rectangle here, if that makes sense. Any more question? Again, to draw an ellipse, you can, just like we used rectangle to draw a rectangle, we can use ellipse 2D to draw an ellipse. And let's see that in example 3. Again, the procedure is, yeah, okay. So the procedure is very simple. We have two ways where we can actually draw ellipse. One, we can use oval, and I think one we can use is ellipse dot 2D. So what we are doing here is, again, we are going to see we have J frame here. We are creating a simple J frame. Again, we are setting the default close operation to exit on close. You click on close and it exits. Okay. And frame dot set size is 400 by 400. And what you are doing here is, again, we have this ellipse component class, which is extending again J component. So previously, so we have this generalized J component, and using that J component, we can define anything. Okay, we can define an ellipse, we can define a rectangle, we can define a line, even we can define some text. So what you need to do is you need to extend this J component, you need to override this paint component function. Again, you are defining a graphics 2D object. So what you are doing is you are giving X, Y, width, height. Okay. So what you are doing here is you are just, so you are setting the color dot red. So there is also a way you can, either you can define color like this, magneta, or you can simply, there are some words like color dot red. I'm not sure if green is something. Yeah, color dot green. Not sure it works. Yeah. So you can also define colors like this, but again, it's not really important. You can always go around with different colors. You can use different RGB values here. Okay. And finally, you can use fill oval function to define your circle. Okay. So that's how you define a circle here. Let's try changing it to 100 and let's see. So your circle has been moved, shifted to right. So basically this is your X point, this is your Y point. So, so if you see it's starting from here, 100, 100. And if I make it 200, it should technically go in the center. Okay, it's not going in the center, but it's going here. So the whole idea here is you can play around with these things. Okay, the location thing, which is not really important. This is the last thing you always do in your application. So first, you create every functionality, every button, everything, and finally you actually make the front end beautiful, okay, for the people who use this application. So that's how you generate a circle. Again, um, you can draw some lines. By the way, you are not going to use this in your project. Okay, this is just something to teach you like how things work. So for the line, let's go to again example 4. So we have extended this J component class. And what we are doing is, in order to draw a line, simple use line 2D segment is equals to new line 2D. And here you are giving some parameters to draw a line. And finally, you simply use G2D.draw to draw a line. So first you created a frame. Then again, these two lines, they are normal. You just need to copy and paste them. So you create a new line component and you just add it inside a frame. So again, when you click on run, it goes here, frame.add, and it goes to the line component. What is line component? The type of line component is this class. So here you come towards this paint component function, and it simply defines a graphics 2D, it defines a line 2D, and finally it draws the line here on this JFrame. So any question here? Things are very simple. You are just drawing things. Okay, you are just giving some parameters and you are just drawing things and you can just play around with it. Okay, that's how you draw. And again, you can draw some text. So you can see that there are sometimes there is a text written. Maybe you see here your presentation. So basically this is a JFrame and this your presentation is basically a text that is written. So to draw a text, you can use draw string method. So let's go to example 5 and see how it has. Okay, so now we are writing some text here. So again, in order to draw a component, you need to use a J component class. So you extend the J component class. We have this paint component thing here. Again, we have defined graphics, 2D. Now we are defining a font size. We are defining a font. Again, we are defining it plain. You can do bold or italic. You are setting the font in G2D and you are using G2D dot draw string to draw a string. So here you can see this graphics 2D object. If you pass a rectangle, it draws a rectangle. Okay, it gives you draw string or maybe some other draw method. I'm not sure. G2D dot draw. Yeah, so you can draw 3D rectangle, draw characters, like draw images. Like it gives you a lot of functions to draw different things. Okay, so this graphics 2D basically uh, this class is used for graphics. Okay, and to draw a string, it gives you a function to draw a string, which is draw string function. And if you want to draw something like a, a rectangle, an ellipse, or maybe a line, you just use dot draw function. Okay, and again, it's not really difficult. This is something really easy. Again, you are first creating a frame and you are just creating a text component instance, and you are just adding the text component instance. So what happens is when you are adding it in the frame, it goes here, it runs this function, it set the font size to 24, it set the font to font, and finally it draw a string. So we can also draw something, hello world. And since we are starting at 0, so it's on the extreme left. So we can do something like this. We can try putting it here. So yeah. So let's say you are creating something, you have some text box and you want to put it in some certain location. So it's like you can just choose different X and Y axis. And when you think that, okay, this looks nice here in the center, then you stop. Okay. So you just have to do hit and trial. Okay, because you don't have to put your mind. Okay, you don't need to do calculation. If I want to select this value, then it's going to print it there. Okay, so that's how you put text on JFrame. For the colors, again, to draw in colors, you need to supply a color object. So there are two ways you can supply a color object. One is this, which we have seen. This is RGB. So basically a color, any color is a representation of different RGB values. Okay, so this first one is R, which is red. This is green, G, and this is B, blue. It's blue, right? Yeah. So, and another way is you can set colors like this: color dot blue, color dot red, color dot pink, etc. And in order to fill a color inside a shape, you can use G2 dot fill circle. So if you go back to example 2, you can see, where is example 2? Yeah. So you can see that before drawing, we actually fill the rectangle. So this fill function basically takes the color and fill the rectangle. Okay. So again, this fill is just to fill a picture or any component, um, and it just take the color and fill it inside. And now in order to change the color, maybe we can do something like this, and it's going to change the color. It's going to make it white. Okay. And that's how you change the color of the components. Okay. And these are some color values for black, blue, cyan, gray, or anything. Okay. You don't have to remember these. Okay. So any question till here? Okay. We can also draw something like this. It's like, so previously we have seen that we draw rectangle once, line once, uh, s- text once, but what we can do is we can define multiple components and draw it, okay, on the JFrame. So let's see an example. So in this example, again, let's start from here. We have a J frame. We created a J frame. We set the size of the J frame. We set the title again. Okay, so here is the main thing. We are creating a face component and we are adding it on the frame. But what is the face component? So if you come to a face component, it is extending J component. Okay, so again, we are only interested in a function paint component. So whenever we add something on the frame, this function will run. So let's see what we have in this function. We have first created an ellipse 2D, and that's we have used to create a circle. And then we have G2 dot draw head. So first of all, we are drawing the head, which is an ellipse, and we are setting the color to green. And then we are creating rectangular eyes. We are filling the eyes with green color. And we are using I dot translate. Translate is basically clone. So you are cloning some rectangle, okay? And finally, you are filling it again in another eye. And then you are creating a line. You are setting the color of line to red. And finally, you are drawing a mouth using a line. And finally, you are drawing a string, hi everyone. So what we have done here is in this paint component, now we have drawn four things: ellipse, rectangles, um, the line to represent mouth, and finally a string. So you can see here, so let's go step by step. It first defined graphics 2D. So first it created an ellipse. So basically this black ellipse, first it has created this ellipse using the draw function. Then it created rectangle, two rectangles using this translate function, and it has drawn the rectangle. Finally, it has drawn the mouth using this red line. And finally, it has drawn a string, hi everyone. And again, in order to make something like, let's say, if you want to test or if you want to change the position of these things, you can always put different location. So the whole idea of all these things we have seen right now is you can draw different shapes. Um, or maybe you can change the location of the components, and you can draw multiple components using maybe in order to draw a car, maybe you need two rectangles of different length, like first rectangle, the upper body, lower rectangle, lower body, and the two tires are the two ellipse. Okay, so using that you can create a car, and maybe you can group it and perform like write a code that actually moves on the J frame. Okay, so you can always do something like this. Again, these are not really important. If you know it, that's good. If don't, then the main thing that is important is buttons, and we are going to see that. Event handling, sorry. So event handling is the main thing which you need to know. So at this point, till here, do you have any question? No question? Okay, perfect. So let's go to event handling. So till here, we have seen static shapes, like we just draw something, but we don't know what to do with that. Okay, we are not clicking on some circle. We are not clicking on anything. What we are doing is we are just creating some like static shapes. So in the event handling, let's say you want to add some functionality. So let's say there is a button here, click me. And if you click on the button, it does something, but how? So that's event handling. Okay. So now let's learn how to make GUIs functional. So how to create a function that does something. Okay. So you put a button on the GUI, but how are you going to implement a functionality that actually does something? Okay. So that is event handling. And so what are events? So every time a user interacts with a component on the GUI, events are generated. Events are component specific. I will explain how they are component specific. Um, Component specific means that the mouse cursor, it has different events. Clicking mouse, it has different events. And again, there are different buttons like checkbox, radio box. They generate different events. Okay. And events are objects that store information like the type of event, the source, and the time. Again, we are going to see all the events from now. Okay. So we always have event source, which generate the event listener, which receives the event and handles it, and finally event object that describe the event. So event is something like this, like you have gone to your friend's house and now he's at the door and you are leaving. So you are just waving him. Okay. So now you have generated an event, and no, now your friend, he took the event. Okay, he said, okay, now he's waving. So your friend took the event, and what is the next thing he's going to do? He's going to close the door. So I generated an event, he received it, and then he performed some functionality. So that's exactly what events are in here. Okay. So let's think about it. So let's say we have a button, click me. Okay. So if you click on a button, it generates an event again. So this blue event, it will be generated, but there must be something that is listening to the event, right? So there must be something in the code that listens to that event. So what happens is we create an action listener. So basically this action listener listens to some event. Okay. So it takes an event as an input here. If you see action event E, and it does something inside a function. So what happens is you create an event object that is sent to the action listener, and the action listener handles in action perform method. Again, like this is a lot of text. So let's go to code to see an example, hello world button. So we will like go step by step. So let's first run it. And if I click on this, something is printed here. Okay. So what is happening? So again, let's go back to code. So we have this main function. So first of all, whenever you are working with JFrame, first of all, the first step is you create a JFrame. So you created a JFrame, and the next thing we need to do is to create a button and put it on the JFrame. Okay, so button is basically a component. But for the button, you don't need to use J component. It has its own class J button. So using J button, you create a button. And what should be written inside a button? Click me. Okay. So at this point, it has created a J button, and it has set the text to click me. Okay. And it has set the bounds of the button, like the location of the button using 150, 130. Okay. So that's how it has set the location. And we are again creating a J label. So basically J label is a label that allows us to put a string on JFrame. Okay. So this is J label. So this hello world is J label. But right now we are setting the value as null, like there is nothing. So, so if you see, here, when we have run this, there is nothing here because we are setting the label as empty string. Okay. And the next thing we are going to do is we are going to create an action listener. So this action listener is going to listen to some event. Okay. And what is that event? If I click on this button, it is going to generate an event. The event needs to go somewhere to be to process. Okay. So we are going to create an action performed function, again using action listener class. And we are going to override action performed, which is going to take an event, which is coming from the button. And it is going to set the text of label as hello world. And you are going to attach this add action listener to this button. Okay. You are good. So what did you do? You created a frame, you created a button, you created a label, you created this action listener. So action listener is you are listening to something. Okay. You are listening to something and you are doing something. So it's like this. Right now you are listening to me, and if I am talking, you are not talking, right? So you are doing something. I'm generating an event, and you are, what is your functionality? To just like stay quiet when I'm teaching. So exactly like when I'm creating a button and I am adding an action listener, the button is going to keep listening to the events. Okay. And as soon as it gets the event, it run this function. Simple. So just a very simple rule. If you assign an action listener to some component, let's say a button or maybe anything, it keeps listening. And as soon as it receive an event, it runs this action performed function. That is the main foundation of this whole event handling. Okay. So just remember, there is something on the frame that is generating an event, maybe, a button or anything. And when you click on that and when an event is generated, the function that is run is this action performed. That's it. Okay. And what you are doing is, once you have created this button and label, you are adding it on the frame. Simple. Okay. So before all these things, the buttons were not added here. The button and this was not added here. So we are adding this button in here and we are adding this label in here. And finally, we are setting the size of the frame and setting visible to true. So let's run it. We created a button using J button. Okay. We set the text to click me. Okay. So let's do something like this. Is there an error? No. So if I click on this thing, nothing happens. Nothing happens because we have not yet defined the functionality of what happens if we click this button. Right now, it is not doing anything, right? We are creating an event, but there is no action listener that is listening to that event. So you created an action listener. Again, you don't have to memorize this syntax. It is there. You just need to use it. And you are overriding this action performed function. Okay. So, and you are actually attaching this add action listener to this button. So it's like this. So you have like three people, let's say in this building, one is on first floor, second floor, and third floor, right? So for the first person, you are assigning a task, you need to look at the window. For the second person, you are assigning a task, you need to look at the door. So we are assigning an action listener to each person separately. So for the first person, if he sees someone from the window, he will respond. For the second person, if he sees something on the door, he will respond. So similarly, we have a button and we are attaching an listener to that button. And this is the syntax. You pass the listener object in the add action listener function. So what happens is, now if you run it and if you click on this, click me, the first thing it is going to do is it is listening to this event. So if I click on this button, it goes to this function and simply run it. And in this function, what we are doing is we are just setting the text of label to hello world. That's it. So that's event handling. So what we are doing is we are creating a button. We are generating an event from the button and we are handling the event somewhere inside a code. And that is action performed. So this action performed function will run whenever it receives an event. And what do I mean whenever it receives an event? If I don't click on anything, I'm not generating any event, okay? As soon as I click here, I'm generating an event. And the first thing that is going to happen is this function will run. Okay, so any question in this event handling? Any question? This is actually the first part of your project. So you are going to create some buttons and you are going to assign some functionality. And that's how you are going to like store some data in the CSV file. Okay. So if you don't understand anything from here, please let me know, or if you have any question. Okay. So I assume there is no question. Okay. So in case of multiple sources, what if there are more than one button? So in the previous example, we saw that we have a button, and if we click on the button, it does something, right? But what if in case of multiple sources, we have multiple buttons? So how we can do that? So we have this event.get source. So basically e.get source is event.get source. So if we click on say hello, it generates an event. If we click on clear text, it is going to generate an event, right? So this e.get source is going to tell us like what is the source of click. Have we clicked on this say hello button or we have clicked on this clear text button? Okay. So let's go in the code and see how we manage this kind of behavior. Hello world button. Yeah, okay. So let's run it first. So let's click on say hello. We write something here. If we click on clear text, the text is gone. If we click on say hello again, we get the text back. We click on clear text, the text is gone. But what's happening here? Again, we have a main function. Don't worry about this swing utilities dot invoke later. This is just a syntax, just like this static void main string args to run this JFrame. Okay, so your code actually starts from here, hello world button app. So if you go to hello world button app, you are simply setting the title, you are setting the default close operation again. So you are creating a hello button is new J button, okay? And you are setting the bound. And then you are creating a clear button. You are again generating a button using J button, and you are actually assigning an add action listener, and you are creating a label which is going to add some string. Okay, so what is that string? Yeah. So basically this is J label. At this point, we are not writing anything. So when we run this application, nothing is going to be printed in this hello world. We are going to change it on runtime. Okay. And simply we are doing add hello button, add clear button, and add label. Okay. So now you must be saying where is frame, right? So this is another way to create a frame. Okay. So you do something like this. So you this hello world button app extends JFrame. Okay. And when you extend JFrame class, it assumes that you have created a JFrame. Again, this is just a syntax. You don't want to use it, that's okay. You can use the previous syntax like create a JFrame and JFrame dot add JFrame dot do something. Okay. But all these things, they are same. I mean, if you see JFrame dot add or simply add, or JFrame dot set size or simply set size. Okay. Don't like, these are all the same. We have just removed JFrame dot, and this is just another syntax to do things. But if you are not comfortable in this, that's totally okay. You can just omit it. So what we are going to do is, so this basically this action listener is an interface. Okay. So we implement this interface, and to implement an interface, again, we have to define this function action performed. Okay. So I told you that whenever we click on something, the function that is going to run is action performed. And I told you that we have, okay, so we have two buttons here, right? So we are saying that if e.get source, so if the source of the click is hello button, and what is hello button? This is the name of this button, say hello. And clear button is the name of the button, clear text, right? So if we click on say hello, this e.get source will be equals to hello button, and we will set the label to hello world. Okay. That's what we have done. But if we click again, if we click on clear button, so if the source of this event is clear button, it will set the label to nothing. Okay. Zero string, not zero string, just nothing, empty string. So again, since our code is still running, if we click again on say hello, it is going to run this if condition, and it checks, okay, hello world. So it is going to assign hello world here. Again, to clear text, it's gonna assign like empty string. So if you have multiple buttons, that's how you actually interact with GUI application. Okay. So what you do is you use e.get source, and you get the source of your event or the click. And based on that, information, you do something meaningful inside your function. Any question? Yeah. No, it's not gonna print twice because the label is only one. It's not like it's not like an array of labels. The label is just one, and we have put it here somewhere on the J frame. So we are just so every time we click on say hello, it is going to set the label text to hello world. Okay. But if we click on clear text, it's going to change the label. So the whole idea is label is just one, and you are just changing that one label every time. Okay. Any question? Yeah. Yeah. So we are just so that's the whole idea. So previously, I mean, if you go to yeah, so if you see this, we are not extending JFrame, right? We are just creating a simple hello world, and we are just creating a simple main function. But here it's another way to write a code. So what you do is, instead of like just this, we can extend the JFrame. So now when you have extended the JFrame, now it has assumed that it has created a JFrame, okay, somewhere inside. And to set the title, we are using this. So in order, so you are saying that, so what we are doing here is, now we have this JFrame class. Okay, we are extending it because JFrame is the main class, right? Is the parent class. So we are just writing a main function of this class, and this is swing utilities dot invoke later. So basically, we have this run function, and in this run function, we are just creating a new instance of this class. That's it. We are not doing anything. So when we are creating an instance of this class, so basically we are calling a constructor, right? And everything here is inside a constructor. You got it? So what happens is, whenever you create a new instance, you actually call the constructor, right? So basically this is the constructor. Again, this is a way to write the code. Okay, you can, if you are not comfortable with this, just forget it and just follow this. We can do the same thing here. Okay, in the action listener, we can just simply copy and paste this function here, and it's going to run fine. Okay, you can create two buttons here, whatever suits you. So, and again, the whole idea to show this code is, if you see something, if you go online and if you see something like this, so you don't get confused. Okay, what's the, so the whole idea is, if you are extending a JFrame class, and if your JFrame is the parent class, you don't define a JFrame frame is equals to new JFrame. No, it has assumed that there is a JFrame somewhere. But if you are not extending a JFrame here, if you are not extending it, then you need to create a JFrame constructor, like instance with a constructor. And then you, in this object, you are setting default close, you are setting layout, you are adding a function, and you are setting the size. So that's the whole idea. If you are not okay with this, like if you think that is something like difficult to understand, just follow this one. Okay. Any more question? No question? Perfect. And okay, so that is an event. If you click on a button, that is an event. So that is a button event. Okay. Um, and you implement an action listener. Okay. So there are other events too, like focus event, mouse event, Windows event, text event, key event, and there are multiple events. For example, a component gain or loses focus. So if you see this, you see, if you hover your cursor on this, say hello, so it is getting focus. So basically this focus event has been implemented. So as soon as you move your cursor on this button, it does something. Okay, it gets the like, you can see something is happening. Okay, so that is focus event. We have mouse event. We are going to see in the example later. So what these mouse events do, if you move a mouse, drag, press, release, or click, something happens. Okay. Um, it's uh, it's like this. So there are some companies who have like developed some softwares. You are working from home and your mouse should work all the time. If you stop using mouse, it means that you are not on the computer. Okay. So that's how they have used mouse events to develop this type of application. Then we have Windows event. Window is open or closed. Like, let's say this is a window, it's open or closed. We have text event if the text is modified, and finally key event, like key is pressed, depressed, or both. Depressed key, yeah. So that's how and how you implement these functions. So basically, to listen to some, like to implement the focus listener, you can implement this using focus listener. For the mouse events, you can use mouse listener. Window state listener, window listener, you can use text listener, and finally you can use key listener. So let's say you are creating a game, and or not a game, or any, like if you want to check if a key is pressed, a certain key is pressed, you can use the key listener. Okay. So the key listener will be listening to the keyboard inputs, and as soon as you press some button, um, for example, if you have used Linux or command prompt and it asks you that to close this, press W or press Control W. So it is using a key listener. As soon as you press something, things close. Or maybe in the game you press Alt F4, or maybe in a software you press Alt F4, it closes everything. So it's listening to a key event, and how they are doing it, they are using the key listener. Okay. So maybe I think at this point you can take a break, and we will meet after 20 minutes. Yeah. Okay. We will meet at 12:50. If, yeah, if you want to take your midterms, I'm gonna call the